Most presidents leave the White House with some big accomplishments under their belt. Historic moments that'll fill books and museums for the rest of time. Like JFK deploying a wall of warships around Cuba to blockade the Russians during the missile crisis. Or Richard Nixon presiding over Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin, plunging the American flag into the surface of the moon.
It's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
Yes, indeed. They've got the flag up now, and you can see the stars and stripes on the lunar surface.
We all remember George Bush rallying the nation after 9/11 on a pile of rubble in Lower Manhattan.
I can hear you. The rest of the world hears you. And the people who knock these buildings down will hear all of us soon.
Every president has signature moments that define their terms. But there's one president who doesn't have much to brag about. He's only 2 years into his presidency, but is there a moment that Joe Biden is going to be remembered for? The botched withdrawal from Afghanistan historically is probably the one thing so far that's seared into the nation's memory. And that falling off of his bike. And don't tell me it's Biden strolling through Ukraine with fake air raid sirens. That's just a proxy war. But the binder has already cemented Joe's legacy for us. She knows what her boss will go down in history for. The old straight white male's legacy is diversity.
You've heard this from the president, you've heard this from me, you've heard this from many of us here. Diversity and representation is really important to this president. I want to take the opportunity to lay out how diverse the president's cabinet has been, how diverse the president's administration has been. The cabinet is majority people of color for the first time in history. The cabinet is majority female for the first time in history. A majority of White House senior staff identify as female. 40% of White House senior staff identify as part of the racially diverse communities. And a record 7 assistants to the president are openly LGBTQ+. So again, this is something that the president prides himself on.
Diversity is fine by me. Racial, gender, sexual, whatever. I don't care what you are or how you identify, as long as you can get the job done. And that's the problem. The Biden administration isn't getting the job done. It seems like during the hiring process, looks at your picture and your pronouns, and that's more important than your talent and experience. Black, gay, woman, trans. If you shatter a ceiling, you have a job at the White House. When you hire people and you make their identity more important than their qualifications, you don't get the most competent people. But that might not be their goal. The Biden White House doesn't seem like they're trying to hire the best and the brightest. They're trying to hire the most diverse and representative. And when their identity gets them the job and their identity protects them from legit criticism, you can appoint whoever you want. You can appoint ideologues, patsies, loyalists, yes men and women, as long as they're diverse. Are there black, gay, Hispanic females who are qualified to work at the top levels of the government? Of course. But that's not who was hired in this administration. Biden's making diversity look like a bad thing because his picks aren't delivering. And people are starting to realize it doesn't matter what you look like. Our players, our best ones, aren't out on the field. Look at the vice president. She called Joe Biden a racist, didn't get a single vote in the primary, and flamed out after burning through tons of cash and staff. But Biden boxed himself in and promised to pick the first black female VP. Was she really the best option? Was she even the best black female option?
I like to think about a lot of things in the context of a Venn diagram. I love Venn diagrams. Always ask, is there a Venn diagram for this? I'm telling you, it's fascinating when you do. So Venn diagram, those 3 circles, right? So on this, the intersection between climate, extreme climate, right, which is going to be about, that's going to be also an intersection with human behaviors about greenhouse gas emissions.
What about Sticky Sammy? Joe's old nuke guru. Joe didn't pick him, to be fair, but we know why he's there. There wasn't anybody in America more qualified than a transgender sadomasochist thief. But Sammy went by they, so they didn't vet him. And now nobody can find their luggage. The Biden team just saw sticky stilettos and said, hey, here's the nuke codes, kid. You start next week. And then you have Binder. She's the first press secretary who's a black lesbian. I guess I'll clap for that. Way to go. But afterwards, I'm done clapping and I'm done being proud of her. Then what? Her job is to communicate, and she can't communicate. Is the LGBTQ plus community proud of Binder? She can't communicate. Are they proud?
The process is we are starting our process our protocol process on close contact. Our process, because as we all stated, he is now positive. We are doing our process. This is a devastating just the draft of this that we learned about. So the board has never convened. It never convened, and the board is yes, the board is pausing in the sense that it will not convene.
You end up feeling sorry for her. But is that the point of appointing her press secretary? You appoint a glass shatterer who's bad at her job, but we can't attack her because she shatters? They say she's a victim. Biden's proud of appointing victims who can't do their jobs? And then there's Sneaky Pete. He was the mayor of a town near Notre Dame. That's it. That's all he was. But Mayor Pete was gay, so he shatters. But South Bend, Indiana, didn't really blossom under Mayor Pete.
His hometown South Bend Tribune wrote in 2018 of major issues with potholes. It's the worst that area repair shops can remember in well over 10 years, with lines of vehicles awaiting repair for pothole-related damages nearly every day.
So Biden hires the guy who couldn't fix potholes to run our trains, planes, roads, and ports. Why? Because he sounds smart and he shatters. But the minute Pete becomes secretary, our transportation systems fall apart. A toxic train wrecks an Ohio town. And 3 weeks later, Pete slips into Palestine at the crack of dawn, dressed as a trick-or-treater, just to say it's not his problem. But is there any way Biden's going to fire the guy? No. Is he going to resign? No.
The American public doesn't seem to be very confident in your ability to do your job. Will you be resigning anytime soon?
I'm not here for politics. I'm here to make sure the community can get what they need.
Will you apologize?
I want to be
Will you
speaking to
apologize for the
leaders,
response? For the slow response, taking your
Probably
time?
one of the big things. Let's go in here and get away from it.
No apology?
So diversity can be a strength, but they're doing it all wrong. Instead of putting together a group of people who are diverse in experience, diverse in class, diverse in background, diverse in thought, the Biden White House picks people who look different but think and act the same. Hot Air says this, quote, Democrats will tell you that their diverse administration looks more like America than any previous one, which even by demographic standards is ridiculous. There are more transgendered people in the Biden administration than in the state of Idaho. Anybody working in the White House almost by definition is not an average Joe. Whatever their race or sexuality, they have more in common with each other than with any average person in the country. Drop Karine Jean-Pierre into the south side of Chicago and she would stick out like a sore thumb. Most of the Biden administration are just lawyers from the coasts who shatter. It's starting to look like a scam. Look how easy it is to exploit them. How do you think Mini got away with stealing billions and buying elections? He was pumping money into Democrats' pockets with a woke sales pitch in order to kill crypto regulations.
Using your money and influence, and I think there's a question about whose money you were using, but to donate, for example, to the Democratic Party.
You know, my donations were mostly for pandemic prevention, and they were looking at primary elections where there were candidates who were outspoken in favor of doing things now to prevent the next pandemic. It's just a PR campaign, sort of masquerading as do-gooderism, and things like greenwashing are things which I think end up in a somewhat similar area.
Fair to say you participated in this?
Yeah, we all did.
We all did. Exactly. The millions Minnie said were for diversity and dolphins really just bribes to buy the Senate and get regulators off his back. And once they were done with him, Minnie was thrown in the clink, and thanks for the midterms, I'll see you in 100 years. But here's the bottom line. The politicians work for us. We don't care what the public servants look like, as long as they're looking at us instead of themselves, as long as they serve us, because lately they're just serving themselves. They care more about diversity than they care about us. We don't care what your cabinet looks like, Joe Biden. We care about what we're paying your cabinet to do, which is serve the people. We pay your salaries. We're glad you shatter, but stop patting yourself on the back. We're the ones that need a hand. Let's bring in Tulsi Gabbard. She's a former presidential candidate and a Fox News contributor. And you can go down the list of the cabinet, Tulsi. I think we're a little tired of the diversity stuff.
Yeah, you know, Jesse, what we're seeing here is their philosophy of identity politics. And this is one of the main reasons why I left the Democratic Party, because you're seeing how their agenda of identity politics is directly undermining the traditional democratic values that were expressed so beautifully and clearly by Dr. Martin Luther King, that we should judge each other not based on the color of our skin, but based on our character. And yet, as you have displayed here over and over with example after example, they're proud to be judging people, hiring people, selecting people based on race, which is really, let's be clear how serious of a problem this is. It's based on genetics, race, based on your blood, your genes. And where do we see that connection? Well, these are the very same geneticist core principles embodied by Nazism and Adolf Hitler. And this should be something that is sickening and alarming to every single Democrat and every single American. We have seen where this philosophy can lead. The American people deserve so much more. We need leaders who will elect, who will select people based on their character, how committed they are to the Constitution, and the capabilities that they bring to actually do the job that they're hired to do. Most importantly, their heart. Do they have a heart and commitment for serving the American people? As you said, putting service above any selfish interest, actually waking up every day saying, how can I best serve the American people who I'm charged to serve in whatever job it may be?
You're saying the focus on genetics is in a way similar to what was going on in Germany.
You look at the core values and core principles of Adolf Hitler and Nazism. What is it based on? It's based on genetics. This is that philosophy of geneticism and discriminating against people based on their genes. And that's the issue here, really, when you cut to the core of it. When they're standing there saying, hey, we are proud to be selecting people solely based on race, that is alarming to me on so many levels. You see them, oh, we were going to select someone based on their race, based on their gender, these immutable characteristics that we're born with. This goes against, again, the very vision our founders had for us. It goes against traditional democratic values, and most of all, the American people deserve to know that those in positions of power and leadership are putting their interests first, regardless of race or gender or religion or politics or anything else. That's the responsibility of our leaders, and that's what we, the American people, deserve.
Yeah, I'm not sure about the German thing, but I think you're right on this point. They care about what the administration looks like, but they don't care about what we look like. And we're out here saying, hey, we need this, we need that. Can you? And they're not even looking at us. They're just looking at
they're putting
themselves
first.
Right, exactly.
They're putting themselves first.
Exactly.
And that alone is a huge disqualifier.
Exactly. All right. Thank you very much, Tulsi. Have a great weekend.
Thanks, Jesse.
Wait till you hear Joe Biden's excuse for not going to East Palestine. Just moments ago, Joe Biden announced he is not planning on going to East Palestine.
Are you planning to travel to East Palestine, Ohio?
Probably not. I did a whole video. What the hell? On Zoom? Zoom. All I can, every time I think of Zoom, that song of my generation, Who's Zooming Who? And initially there was not a request for me to go out, even before I was heading over to Kyiv.
Biden wants nothing to do with this poor town that just got toxic train wrecked. He's letting Mayor Pete take all the bullets for him on this one, and those are Pete's words, not mine. Pete didn't sign up for any of this. Pete was supposed to just sit back and enjoy his personal time. And then when 2024 would finally come around, Biden was supposed to pass him the torch after cleaving Kamala from the ticket. It was a succession plan until Pete screwed it up. First, it was a supply chain crisis, then it was airline drama, and now toxic trains are flying off the rails. And now Pete's being shamed into leaving Chaston in the middle of the night. He's being shamed into dressing up like a racist white construction worker and flying out to Trump country. He's being shamed because this time he's not just taking incoming from Jesse Waters. He's being attacked by everyone, from Jon Stewart to Rosie O'Donnell to even CNN.
I do think it's great that Pete Buttigieg, the transportation secretary, is there. Probably should have taken 3 weeks for him to be there. He said, look, some people just show up and it causes a distraction. That's true for a president, perhaps, but it's not true for a transportation secretary.
Democrats aren't happy about this. They're boxed into a corner. Their bench is empty now, and Joe has to run again.
Is there any reason for any of us to think that he is not running again?
You're not believing this, Darlene? I mean, how many times does he have to say it until you believe it? He's not finished what he started, and that's what's important.
Jill can't believe no one wants her husband to run again. She's like, stop asking me. We told you he's running again. Why does everybody keep asking? Because they don't like him. Pete's presidential campaign's derailed. I mean, that's the only derailment that's got his attention. So Sneaky Pete needs serious help right now. He needs someone who will soften the blow. If only there was someone who could do that for him.
People don't know why they would ever vote for him, for somebody who, by the way, he placed someone with deep ties to the chemical industry in charge of the EPA's Chemical Safety Office. That's who you voted for in that district. Donald Trump, who reduces all safety. He did.
Oh, okay. So it's East Palestine's fault that a toxic train wrecked in their town. They voted for Trump, and Joy says Trump's the one who loosened brake regulations. But PolitiFact says the change in brake regulations had nothing to do with the derailment. Did you read the report yesterday? Joy, the train flew off the tracks because the bearings got too hot. Had nothing to do with the brakes. Even the National Transportation Safety Board had to go on CNN to clear it up.
For this investigation and for this derailment, ECP brakes would not have prevented the derailment. The wheel bearing failed on car number 23. So even with ECP brakes, the derailment would have occurred, the fire would have ensued.
And there you have it. But none of that matters to Sneaky Pete. He's just going to tiptoe to the other Joy that has his back.
This is Trump County. What do you make of the fact that he went there, despite the fact that the regulations that he rolled back were partly responsible for this tragedy?
I mean, it was definitely an ironic thing to do. You take down regulations, you water down regulations, you weaken the power of the administration to deal with freight railroad companies, and then you show up wanting to be a great friend of the people who have been impacted by a rail disaster. You could sense a level of frustration with the political circus that has descended on their town after they've already been through so much.
So Joy Reid's dumb because she doesn't even read the news and doesn't know why the train derailed. Pete knows why, and he's not dumb. He's a liar and just gets on the air and then lies about it. You think East Palestine's thinking about politics right now? If they seem angry at the government, it's because they are. They're being lied to, told to drink the water, breathe the air. Listen to this. A crew of independent environmental scientists just released a report saying that the air in East Palestine is still full of toxic chemicals. The same chemicals that are causing the rashes, headaches, and breathing issues. They're also possibly cancerous. Meanwhile, the EPA says it's fine. All while they're too busy just pouring $500 million into planting anti-racist trees in the name of environmental justice. But if you're from East Palestine and you're breaking out in hives, you're on your own. Where's the justice in that? Rachel Campos-Duffy is a Fox and Friends weekend co-host, and she joins us now. So Joe Biden gets out there and is asked why he isn't going to East Palestine. And he said, what's the word? I zoomed. Yeah, I zoomed.
Yeah. Yeah, you know, there was a time, Jesse, when if you had asked me if there was systemic racism in America, I would have come on your show and say there wasn't. But there is. There's systemic racism and classism, and it's against white working class Americans who voted for Trump and living in Trump country. And we're seeing it glaring us in the face right now. I mean, think about this. I mean, this is, and it's not just Joe Biden, who, you know, should have been there, of course, and Pete Buttigieg, who looked like, you know, a grumpy Bob the Builder. He didn't want to be there at all. But there's other people that weren't there and that were also discriminating against this community. Think about the environmental activists and corporate America. They weren't there. I mean, with the activists, this is an Aaron Brockovich moment. I mean, there was a blockbuster Oscar-winning movie written about something like this.
Aaron Brockovich is actually in East Palestine tonight, right now.
She is, but where's Julia Roberts, an environmental activist? Where's George Clooney? Where's Leonardo DiCaprio? Where are, you know, the annoying, you know, Duchess and Prince of Montecito? Where's Greta Thunberg screaming, "How dare you?" None of these people have shown up. And corporate America, who normally, you know, when there's a disaster, a hurricane, a tornado, or the war in Ukraine, they all get together because, American corporations have always been philanthropic, but they know it's good for business to show up there. They're not there either. Where's Airbnb offering free lodging? Where's American beverage companies?
Where's Poland Spring?
Goya is there.
Yeah.
Right. Goya Foods is there and Trump Water is there. But who else? This is classism. This is racism. And this is political retaliation for those people who are living there. And by the way, those corporations, Jesse, many of them maybe want to help, but they know that this administration is highly vindictive, and they could stick the EPA or the FBI or the IRS on them, and so they're holding back because this administration has signaled to the country, nothing's happening here, we don't care, don't show up.
Yeah, it'll embarrass the administration if corporate America comes in and helps this town. You're right about that. All right, Rachel Campos-Duffy, I've actually used your babysitter today. Thank you very much for the recommendation.
Oh, awesome. Thank you. You're welcome.
Sex, drugs, and classified documents. The FBI has totally gone off the rails. We got two whistleblowers with some juicy details next.